Chapter 18. Mom stands in front of the open fridge for 3 whole minutes before she says, "Huh?" I'm at the table pretending to do my homework. Dan left about an hour ago saying he really had to get home to work on his project that was due tomorrow. Before he left, he helped me get Grieg upstairs and squeeze him under my bed. That, we decided, was the best place for him. My parents never have a reason to look under there, like they sometimes do my closet. We had a quick chat with the robot before covering him up with my bed sheets, and he seemed to understand that he had to be quiet while my parents were around. And maybe you're thinking I'm a crazy person for trying to talk reason to a robot, but you try having a guy like Grieg waltz into your life. You might start acting a little crazy too. What I told the robot was that my mom and dad might be mad and get rid of him if they found out that I had him. They'd done that with other gifts Grandpa K had given me, and promised to feed him plenty more comestibles if he pulled this off. Of course, I'd need to go and get some comestibles first, because the snack cabinet was totally empty. And so was the fridge. Which brings us back to the present moment, where Mom is still standing there, staring into the bare fridge, looking absolutely baffled. And I'm at the table, perspiring and getting pretty panicky. Mom says it again. "Huh?" "What's up?" I ask her, as casually as I can. I thought, did we have a bunch of food in here this morning, or am I losing my mind?" "Ha! There's nothing in there?" Mom turns back to the fridge. "Nope." She crouches down, angles her head, squints. "Well, actually, nothing but a couple of radishes." I say. "That's strange." Then I frown down at my open notebook. I pretend I'm concentrating on an extremely challenging math problem. I pretend I'm concentrating so hard that I can't even hear the huge record book-worthy sigh that comes pouring out of my mom. But I do hear it. And what I'm getting ready to hear next is something along the lines of, "Ken, what in the world did you do with an entire refrigerator's worth of food?" Or, "Ken, this is coming straight out of your allowance." Or even, "Ken, go to your room and don't come out until 2039. What I actually hear is the fridge sucking shut, and then Mom says, "Oh, I need a vacation." A second later, a stack of takeout menus lands on the table beside my notebook. "Looks like we're ordering," Mom says. "You pick." With that, she heads upstairs to get changed. Then I heave a sigh, this one of relief. Chapter 19. Whenever my parents let me decide where to order dinner from, I choose General Noodles. It's Chinese food, and honestly, not all that good. The place is also notorious for messing up orders. It's not uncommon for them to swap one beef dish with another, or to send over a carton of noodles when you clearly asked for rice. One time, I'm being serious, they delivered a sack of straight-up Italian food. We're talking ravioli and meatballs, eggplant parmesan, and those little cheesy fried balls of rice, too. They even brought a few cannoli for dessert. So why do I insist on ordering from General Noodles? The chopsticks. That's right, because no matter how badly they mess up your order, they always give you an absurd number of the things. Even if they bring you manicotti instead of mushu pork, you can be sure they'll include a few dozen of the thin little paper envelope packages. It's like they think you're trying to feed a small army on $25 worth of food. But you're probably wondering, what could I possibly want with such a large quantity of mass-produced chopsticks? Well, you see, the balsa-like wood that your standard set of chopsticks is made of is thin and light and weak, but therefore flexible and portable, and capable of being broken down and discarded or hidden in no more than a couple of seconds. Like one time last summer when Dan and I built a catapult out of nothing but chopsticks and a handful of rubber bands, the thing was great. We hung on to it for several weeks just testing it out. Then, on a super hot day in the middle of August, we set it up in Dan's neighborhood's backyard, which is separated from his own backyard by a narrow strip of trees. We waited for Dan's older brother to wake up and open his window. Then we began our assault. We launched tennis balls and pieces of overripe fruit and even a couple water balloons up into the air and right into Dan's brother's bedroom, twisting the rubber bands based on the shape and weight of the to-be-launched object. The best part? Every time a projectile sailed through his open window, Dan's brother rushed over and leaned outside. But of course he couldn't see who was attacking him. We were covered by the trees. That didn't stop him from screaming at us, though, from promising that he'd hunt us down and drag us up to his room to make us clean the smooshed peaches and pears off his walls and carpet. But later on, when Dan's brother searched Dan's room, all he could find were a bunch of broken chopsticks and some rubber bands. And Dan's brother, not having gotten the same share of family intelligence as his little brother, couldn't see a powerful, finely calibrated catapult in that pile of junk. All of which is to say that I'm eating a beef and broccoli dish for dinner that I most certainly did not order. But, along with the soggy veggies and chewy chunks of meat, I got 51 sets of chopsticks. I'm still unwrapping, splinting, and smoothing the splinters out of the things when my dad gets home. He pauses just past the kitchen doorway, sniffs the air, and says, "What'd we get?" "The Generals," I tell him. He says, "Gross." But he grabs a fork and a container of something from the counter and brings it upstairs with him, taking a few bites along the way. Chapter 20. I check on Grieg before going to bed. He's still there, right where Dan and I put him, laid out on the carpet beneath my bed, his flat face nearly pressed up against my mattress. I can tell the guy hasn't moved so much as an inch. I guess we gave him enough to eat. I floss, brush my teeth, stand there for a while in the bathroom doing nothing but wondering what I might be able to do with some dental floss and 102 thin, tapered lengths of balsa wood. Finally, I head to bed. I have some trouble falling asleep. Every 2 minutes I lean down and check to make sure Grieg's still there. He always is, and after an hour or so of checking, I finally pass out. I dream. Not so surprisingly, I dream about Grieg. We're on a stage. I'm giving a presentation telling a big audience about my world-revolutionizing robot. But then, when I go to show the eager crowd just how Grieg's going to revolutionize the world, the robot won't do a thing. All he does is say, "Please, more, come ask Dibbles. Please, feed." I jerk awake, blink at the thick darkness that hunkered down in my bedroom. As soon as my eyes adjust enough to see a bit, I decide to check under my bed for Grieg again. And thank God I do. Because the robot, he's gone. Chapter 21. Grieg's in the kitchen. I turn the corner just as he's sticking the containers of leftover Chinese food into the little door of his torso. It makes my head spin just thinking about how much food the guy's already packed inside him. And he's still hungry. "Grieg!" I hiss. The robot pauses for a second. "I am Grieg," he says. Then he goes back to filling up his stomach. "Listen," I tell him. "You can't—" I don't know what to call it at first. All that crunching and churning. Then I realize that it mostly closely resembles and can only hope that Grieg understands what I'm saying. "You can't go digesting right now, okay?" "Digesting," says Grieg. "After feeding comes digesting." "Right," I say, feeling relieved. "That. You can't do that right now. It's too loud. You'll wake up my parents." "Grieg can dispose." He doesn't say it like a question, but I can tell it is one by the way the robot's eyes blink patiently. And here's what I'm thinking. How bad can Grieg's disposal process be? When he crunches and churns the food, and it's glass or plastic or paper packaging, it all disappears. Where it goes? I don't know, but it definitely goes. I'm thinking the guy will open a vent and let out some compressed air, or maybe there'll be a valve or some steam. Either way, it won't be too noisy. So I shrug. I say, "Sure, Grieg, dispose away." A small panel in the upside-down trapezoid that is the robot's pelvis slides aside, and out shoots a tiny brown-black cube. I barely see the thing. It soars across the kitchen in about 0.06 seconds, then crashes through the window above the sink. The shattering glass is as loud as a gunshot. Kitty instantly starts to squeal. And based on the series of sounds that follow, I can tell that the dog is now trying to squirm out from under the couch. 2 seconds later, I hear my dad call out, "What in the heck was that?" And then my mom, "Ken?" Grieg, meanwhile, has this to say: "Disposal complete." For a second, all I can do is stare at Grieg in confusion. Also, I admit, a little fear. After all, the guy just farted a speeding bullet. What if I happened to be standing right behind him? I don't get a chance to think this possibility through. I can hear my parents clamoring down the stairs, and I know that if A, I want to keep them from disposing of Grieg, and B, I want to avoid being grounded until I'm 28. I'd rather get the robot out of sight fast. So I grab Grieg, drag him across the kitchen, open the cabinet of pots and pans, and shove him inside. He goes in willingly enough, retracting and bending his flexible limbs in order to squeeze his body beside and around and over the things. I get in the cabinet, door shut, just as my parents are rounding the corner into the kitchen. "Ken?" my mom says. She sounds relieved and confused, and also maybe a little angry. Dad looks from me to the shattered glass above the sink. Finally, his gaze settles back on me. "Explain." At first, all I can do is stammer. I say. Then I say, I think I throw in a well and a so, too, just for some variety. When at last I remember how to speak, I say, "I was just standing here and just..." "Why?" my dad interrupts. He glances at the clock on the oven, 2:33 in the morning. Water," I say. I wanted a glass of water, and then the window, it just all of a sudden, I'm interrupted again. But not, this time, by my dad. This time it's by a series of loud, bright crashes, the sound of pots and pans spilling all over one another. Chapter 23. Both Mom and Dad stomp across the kitchen toward the cabinet to investigate, meaning I'm done for. My parents are going to open that cabinet, meet Grieg, put 2 and 2 together, and lock me in my bedroom for the foreseeable future. But one of us, either me or Grieg, must have some kind of guardian angel looking out for us. That, or the universe was just feeling bored and generous at 2:33 on a Friday morning. Because before Mom and Dad can reach the cabinets, there's yet another crash. This one comes from outside. And along with it, half a second after that crash of a thunderclap rips apart the sky. Little white pellets, dozens and dozens of them, come streaming through the window. They bounce on the countertop and gather in the sink. A few, and then quickly a few more, make it down to the floor and roll and slide their way across the linoleum toward us. Ice. That's what it is. Hail. Mom and Dad and I all seem to recognize this at the same time, and as soon as we do, we all spring into action. The kitchen becomes a whirl of frantic activity. I go straight to the drawer beside the sink and get a roll of duct tape. By the time I turn back around, Mom's got a big black trash bag in her arms. Dad hops up onto the counter and waves me and Mom over. He grabs the trash bag, spreads it out, and holds it over the damaged window. I tug a length of tape from the roll, tear it free with my teeth, fix it to the frame of the trash bag covered window, and then tug again at the roll. Within a minute, we've got the bag taped in place. We keep taping, though, especially because the hail is hammering so hard at the black plastic. But it won't break through. It can't. As I learned from Grandpa K, there aren't many problems that can't be solved with a roll of duct tape. Once we're done, Dad climbs down off the counter. Mom goes into the next room, helps Kitty out from under the couch, and brings him in to help clean up the hail-littered floor. Luckily, Grieg stays quiet throughout the whole ordeal. I guess he's tuckered out after his disposal, and my parents, they must still be half asleep, because they seem to think the crash in the cabinet has something related to the hailstorm. They don't say a thing about it. They make sure Kitty's lapped up every last bit of ice off the floor. Then they head upstairs. I wait until I hear their bedroom door close, and only then do I go and greet Grieg. He's still in the cabinet, his limbs all contorted, looped through the handle of a pasta pot or holding up a frying pan. He's got a strainer atop his square head like an ugly hat. I help him out as carefully and quietly as I can, then go to bring him back upstairs. At the last second, though, I grab that roll of duct tape and, safe again in my bedroom, I tear 2 pieces free. I place one over the speaker that is Grieg's mouth. The other I put over the panel on the back of that upside-down trapezoid. You know, his food cube firing butt. Chapter 24. I don't get another wink of sleep that night. I've got a billion questions bouncing around my head, plus an apparently never not hungry and potentially kind of dangerous robot lying just under my bed. The questions in my head are all about him. Grieg. Where's he from? What else can he do? Is he the world's most amazing gadget, or nothing but one-trick nuisance? I mean, if all he can do is fit the contents of a refrigerator in his stomach, squash it down until it's the size of an ice cube, then shoot said cube out of his backside fast enough to shatter a kitchen window, why would anyone have bothered to build him? I know my grandpa will have the answers to all these questions, and that I can ask him tomorrow during my regular Saturday morning visit. But that would involve waiting a whole 24 hours. And to that I say, thanks, but no thanks. By the time my alarm clock goes off, though, I still haven't gotten any closer to answering even a single one of my questions. And honestly, a part of me wants to fake sick just to stay home with Grieg and keep at it. But another part of me wants to talk to Dan about what the robot did in the middle of the night. And yet another part of me, the biggest, I'll admit, just can't wait to see the look on John Henry Knox's face when I tell him and the rest of the engine nerds that I've got my very own walking, talking, comestible, devouring robot. I sit down and have a talk with Grieg, manned robot, before I leave for the day. I tell him that he has to stay put, that I will give him some more comestibles when I get home, and that until then he can't budge from under my bed. I'm not sure if he understands or agrees. When I pull out the duct tape off his mouth, all he says is, "I am Grieg." Just in case, I grab some more tape and fix Grieg's right arm to the frame of my bed. Then I hurry out of the house so I don't miss the bus. At school, I find Dan waiting for me at my locker. "How is he?" he says. "How's Greg?" "Grieg," I correct him. "Grieg," he says. "Whatever. How is he?" "How is he?" I say. Do you mean before or after he tried to kill me with his fart bullet?" Dan just blinks at me. So I tell him about the little poop-colored cube that came firing out from Grieg's backside in the middle of the night. "But," Dan says, "that's not..." He looks puzzled, which is what I've been expecting, but he also looks more than a little concerned, scared even. I don't know why, but I try to calm him down. "Listen," I tell him, "I don't know why the guy got a cannon in his butt. I'm just giving you the facts." Dan doesn't seem all that satisfied with this. He's staring at a patch of empty air in the middle of the hallway. That's when the day's first bell rings. I slap my hand down on Dan's shoulder. "Look, man, it's Friday. Let's just try and get through the day without driving ourselves nuts. Grieg's not going anywhere. I've got him duct taped under my bed. Come over after school, and then we'll have the whole weekend to figure it all out." Dan doesn't say whether he will or won't come over. He just goes on staring at that big hunk of nothing hanging there in the air. I give him a shake. "I'll see you at lunch," I say. "Now, hurry up, you're going to be late." Chapter 25. When lunchtime finally comes, I'm one of the first engine nerds to get to the empty science room where we usually meet. It was a long morning, and I'm just about bursting with my news about Grieg, but I keep a lid on it because John Henry Knox is late. I ask around to make sure he's in school that day, and one of the guys tells me he just saw him down in the computer lab and that he's freaking out about that hailstorm from the night before. Hailstorm? Says Dan beside me. What hailstorm? Last night, I tell him. Or actually, super early this morning, right around the time Grieg tried to take me out with his turd missile. Dan holds up his tuna sandwich. I'm trying to eat here. I hold up my bagel. Me too. Dan takes another bite of his sandwich. He chews it thoughtfully for a second, then swallows and says, I know you don't like him, that he gets on your nerves. There's no need for him to tell me that he's talking about John Henry Knox. I already know. But what? I say. He makes some good points, Dan tells me. I mean, if you look at his analysis of weather patterns, if you actually listen to his theory about global... I hold up a hand to stop Dan before he can subject me to any more of John Henry Knox's meteorological mumbo-jumbo. I know I'll get more than enough of it when the kid himself arrives. And, speak of the devil, not 2 seconds later, John Henry Knox comes barreling into the room. He's got a laptop under one arm and a bunch of scribbled-on papers under the other. He plops everything down on an empty desk and then right away starts lecturing us. The storm was not forecast by any of the major national weather services nor any local meteorologist. It began slowly with approximately 26 individual pieces of precipitation falling within a randomly selected 10 by 10 foot patch of pavement per minute for 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Then, in a manner that could only be described as abrupt, the sun grew in strength. It quickly became impossible to get any accurate readings regarding the rate of precipitation. He pauses to take a breath, and before he can start up again, I say, Hey, I got a reading. John Henry Knox whips his head around toward me, narrows his eyes. I can tell he's skeptical, like he knows I might just be messing with him, setting him up for disappointment, but he's too curious not to ask. Hesitantly, he says, You did? I nod. Take a sip of my ginger ale and tell him, Sure, a buttload of pieces of falling ice every 0.289 seconds. John Henry Knox scowls at me. That, he says, is not a scientifically sound statement. Maybe not, I admit. And then I shrug, because John Henry Knox is not a fan of shrugs. They're too vague and unscientific. They always make his lips curl up in disgust. But, I say, I've got something way more exciting than this to talk about. John Henry Knox chuckles. Way more exciting than potentially apocalyptic megastorm? I grin. I nod. I tell him, I got a robot.